Welcome to Cherokee Stories. I'm your host, Phil Bange. We're going to talk about an article I saw today on Cherokee Language. Chavez's parents would have gotten in trouble if a teacher had caught them speaking a word of Cherokee, which is one reason the language began plummeting toward extinction. Schools banned it, so nearly an entire generation stopped speaking it. For Chavez and her classmates, however, the Cherokee Immersion School turned the tables. They were punished for speaking English. Now, I was in Cherokee Nation a couple years ago talking to a student, probably right around senior in high school to freshman in college. I wish I could remember his name, but he was telling me how he spoke Cherokee with his parents and could speak pretty well, and then entered school probably at 5 or 6, and eventually he just wanted to speak English because all his friends around him spoke English, and it's natural to want to fit in. And that's the effect that's been had. Also, he was pushed by teachers not to speak Cherokee. And so, there's different forms of punishment or being persuaded. And so I talked to some of the community out there, and they said, that's been an issue. So that's some of the obstacles that are faced. And it makes it difficult to have a thriving language, our Cherokee language. And, I can talk about it all I want, and I haven't done enough. I could say, well, it's hard. There's tons of excuses, but I don't live amongst a community that speaks it, so it is kind of difficult. But if I really got serious, I could always move to Cherokee Nation, and there is immersion schools available now. There's the Master Apprenticeship Program with Ryan Mackey. So, I'm really proud of what they're doing back at the Nation. They're doing good things. So, let me share this article. I should add a glass of water. As first students graduate, Cherokee Immersion Program faces critical test. Will the language survive? 13 years ago, in an unguarded moment on her first day of kindergarten, Emily Chavez spoke a single word of English, and a classmate immediately ran to tell the teacher. "Hey," the teacher raised her voice harshly, "you can't use English here. Speak Cherokee, or don't say anything at all." Chavez's parents would have gotten in trouble if a teacher had caught them speaking a word of Cherokee, which is one reason the language began plummeting toward extinction. Schools banned it, so nearly an entire generation stopped speaking it. For Chavez and her classmates, however, the Cherokee Immersion School turned the tables. They are punished for speaking English. Launched in 2001 on the grounds of the tribal headquarters in Tahlequah, the school started with 23 students, but Cherokee is a hard language. Only 9 made it all the way through the program. "I didn't say much for the first few weeks," remembers Chavez, now a high school senior. "But when you're around the language 8 hours a day, every day, you can't help picking it up. After a while, it's just natural." Now the first batch of Cherokee Immersion students is about to graduate from high school, a milestone and a grand experiment that is trying to revive the Cherokee language before it is too late. They haven't actually been immersed in the language since the 7th grade, when Chavez and her classmates began studying at the Cherokee Nation Sequoia schools, where all classes are taught in English. The question then was How far behind would they be compared to their non-immersion classmates who had gone to English-speaking grade schools? We were behind, Chavez admits, especially in reading and writing, but not for long. Now the former immersion school students are all near the top of their graduating class at Sequoia, officials say. With their graduation upcoming, however, the program will face an even more critical test. Will they retain the language into adulthood? And will they pass it on to the next generation, or will the tribe's ancient language continue to fade? We're not just going to walk away from it and forget it, said Lauren Hummingbird, one of 6 immersion school students who will earn their diplomas from Sequoia this semester. We've worked too hard, and we care too much to let that happen. Growing up around her grandparents, who are fluent speakers, Hummingbird's first words were in Cherokee, not English, making her the closest thing her generation has to a native speaker. Close listeners can even detect a mild Cherokee accent when she speaks English. But with most other speakers being her grandparents, age 17-year-old Hummingbird has to go looking for opportunities to practice her language skills. Even her old immersion school classmates tend to speak English to each other when they cross paths in the Sequoia hallways, although Cherokee can serve as a useful code language when they don't want other teens to know what they are saying. Even then, Hummingbird says, it's usually a mix of Cherokee and English. When I really want to speak Cherokee, I go see my grandparents. After graduating this spring, she will spend a year working with the tribe's Cherokee Language Master Apprentice Program, a sort of immersion class for adults, where Hummingbird will be both a student and a facilitator. Then she plans to study linguistics in college before returning to Tahlequah to do exactly what tribal officials always hoped some of the immersion students would do when they grew up. I see myself coming back here and working with Immersion to teach the language, she says. I honestly can't see my future going any other way. Native speakers, however, continue to die off faster than Immersion program can replace them. With only 133 students enrolled in the entire grade school this semester, tribal officials say for the foreseeable future, the Cherokee language will continue to decline. We're not doing enough, says Chuck Hoskin Jr., the tribe's Secretary of State, but we're taking steps in the right direction. When the tribe started the immersion school in the early 2000s, it also conducted an extensive survey to gauge how endangered the language really was, and the results were shocking. Only 10,000 fluent speakers remain alive, almost all of them past middle age. Officials at the time estimated that without drastic efforts to reverse the language's decline, Cherokee would be dead within 30 or 40 years. Roughly half that time has now gone by, but not without the tribes making progress, Hoskin says. Before the immersion school and the more recent adult apprenticeship program, native speakers weren't being replaced at all as they died off. At least now, a new generation is learning to speak Cherokee. They amount to only a handful. We know that, Hoskin says. But you can see the dedication, the commitment, and that's why I'm optimistic about the future of the language, because I can see how important it is to these young people. Now I'm going to play this video I have from the article.
It was really considered that was dying out, and so to prevent that, they started up a program to integrate children into learning more about the culture and more about the language. They really didn't hold your hand. They threw you into it. They said, hey, we can't speak English whatsoever here, so you have to learn it as you go, and if you don't, you're going to have a hard time adjusting to it. Being around it constantly, 8 hours a day, it was hard not to pick it up because everyone just spoke it. The teachers always spoke it no matter what. So within a few days, I was able to say a few phrases, and then within 2 weeks, I was really integrated into it. And they taught us how to say colors, how to say numbers, and everything. when we were in 5th and 6th grade, that's when they fully started, trying to get us to learn more and trying to get us to the age level. Because for the first few years, it was mostly Cherokee. And then as we got to 6th grade, then they started teaching us regular math and that's when we had days where it was half Cherokee, half English. Because out of necessity to teach us what we were missing in a normal public school. They gave us books, but we didn't enjoy reading them because they were traditional stories. They weren't really modern enough for us. So I think that's something that I would come back to do and help kind of reach out to children more and tell them, it's not a bad thing to be a Cherokee kid. It's not, just because it's a traditional language, just because it's something old, doesn't mean you don't have to like it.
Wado for listening, and that concludes the show. Wado, Adonada Gohai.
Wahilde Gohi, Wahilde Gohi, Wahilde Gohi, Wahilde Gohi, Wadagila Sadi Ayun, Sekiya, Wadagila Sadi Ayun. Wahilde Gohi, Wahilde Gohi, Wahilde Gohi, Wahilde Gohi, Wadagila Sadi Ayun, Sekiya, Wadagila Sadi Ayun.